my power, as a conscious being will always trump the AI. We live in what we feel is the impossibility, but we live in a realm of complete possibility. And that's sort of, it runs counter to a lot of the evidence gathering we do over a lifetime in the physical world, because the physical world does constrain us. But our ability to comprehend, I think, or experience in a very different way, and then to generate perceptions of these extraordinary extensions of our reality, that's real. That is absolutely real. And most people don't bother going there because they say, well, of course it's not real. It doesn't exist. Therefore it can't. Therefore I won't.
Okay, welcome back to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and seafood Taoist master, San Qing, and it's just a delightful, crisp, fresh, happy morning. And I'm welcoming back to the podcast a dear friend of mine, Nancy Tertre.
Oh, that was really good. Yeah.
And she's a master of many things, but she has been teaching the wisdom teaching of remote viewing and all things UAP and many other delightful insights to consciousness. Let's just throw the blanket out there. She is a teacher, a seeker, a solidifier, a concentrator of this potency. And I just want to say thank you for coming back. And I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you, and thank you for having me back. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, we were kind of like getting all warmed up here just before the show. And it sort of sends to, and just for everyone that's new to the podcast, or you're an OG, go back to Nancy's first podcast if you want to get details in her adventure to this point of expansion, because we want to get deep on some of the juicy stuff that's out right now and really expand ourselves on this information. Because I mean, it's kind of like I have a dear friend, you may have heard of him, James Tunney. Have you heard of this guy, James Tunney?
I know the name somehow, but I don't know why.
Yeah, you might have seen him. You are a regular and probably a dear friend of Jeffrey Mishlow, right?
Yeah.
So you know Jeff.
I wouldn't say I'm a regular. He's expanded like astronomically. So he now has many friends.
Yes. Well, in any case, James has been on his podcast, quite a few times, and that's probably where most people will remember him from. But he's got a real twist to his lens of reality, going back into the bowels of history and really sinking in all these sort of ancient indigenous practices and how they've sort of led us to some type of level of what my dear friend, the Buddhist monk, would call as distortion, dukkha. The dukkha is around us, in us, coming out of us. It's probably just shit, really. But, this is what's taking place right now, is a complete and utter mind control. And ultimately, this is a progressive conditioning thing. If you look at time, over a timeline, over human history, this is how this sort of stuff gets to sort of like to a point where I can literally look at my 5-year-old that has no knowledge of certain, timelines of human history and would never have heard of, Darwin's theory. Yet, if I mention to them, have you heard the expression survival of the fittest? They'll be like, yeah, Dad, I've heard. I'm like, whoa, where did this come from? And, I'm attempting to contain the filter of information that they're absorbing. Their environment, the periphery, is really where a lot of stuff is coming in, and it doesn't really matter. Even if you're not putting your laser focus and attention on something, you're absorbing things at a rapid rate, probably close to what we were talking about, or not as fast or as potent as you're sharing with me in relation to the subject of AI. I would humbly disagree that I believe that we are superpowers beyond anything that AI could create. But there is a level of fear that has been propagated, and probably good cause or reason to believe that could consume the very essence of human beings. What are your thoughts on that, my dear friend?
Well, okay, so that's a whole long, involved conversation. Okay. And you just took me on a sort of a complete journey where I could have gotten off at any exit and done a
Just jump off whenever you feel fit. Go ahead.
conversation. I think that, the example that you gave to me before we came on air was that you managed to create some phenomenal sort of almost like your fantasy of music. And you were able to do that with AI. I don't know if you feel like describing that
Yeah,
because your description was phenomenal.
yeah,
But like the way you described it, okay, it was just boom. And there it was within, I don't know, seconds.
right.
Okay. Of,
But isn't that? I would just say, isn't that how we do things, though? Like,
yeah,
isn't that how you get information?
well, it depends. It depends. It depends. I would say you can have knowledge with instantaneously
Yeah,
because you can go anywhere to get it. You just have to you have to know. I think everything is occurring simultaneously, always. So, which means that we are all the iterations of ourselves in this life, in other lives, in consciousness, and so is everybody else and everything else. And if you are interested in finding out, let's say, like you pretend this is like a library and you want to go to one particular book, you set your intention for the title of the book and you can go there and obtain knowledge. Does that mean that you're bringing back all of the characters in the book into whatever this dimensional frame is that we're in? I mean, if you can do that, well, sometimes you can do it. You could do it with certain types of like apportations or psychokinesis or that kind of stuff. You can do that, but in general, if you're trying to, are, are you a musician?
I play. I wouldn't say I'm an accomplished musician. I'm kind of like I'm a watered down version of Wayne Newton. So I just pick things up and they tune themselves. He's like the master wizard of all things instrumental. Like the dude literally plays like something like 60 plus instruments. Only other person I'm aware of that did that was Prince. And like literally he's never read music in his life. He just picks it up and just goes, wow. And you're like, this is blowing my mind. And it always starts and ends with Dankeschön, darling, Dankeschön. Yeah. He doesn't have it anymore, but he has the talent to tune into that. So I don't want to distract you. Where are we going?
Well, because, and by the way, my daughter is she was a performing singer songwriter with a band and stuff for a while before COVID hit, but she plays about 3 instruments, maybe more. She sings. She's phenomenal. So yeah, if you focus on that and you spend your life energy on that, and you're able to buy the instruments or get access to them. I mean, these are all physical dimensional things that you need in order to create a piece of music versus what you were explaining to me about what the AI created for you. I think it'd be helpful. I mean, if you don't mind, to tell your listeners what you told me about how you did it.
Yeah, the composition of it was really just a very simple description. I wanted a Taoist ceremonial ritual instrumental, and it also then was able to implement the lyrics that were created by my own hand, and then they were able to turn it into naturally singing natives in the simplified language within Chinese context is called Mandarin. And so all of a sudden you're like, holy crap. Well, actually, I think that, excuse me, that's Cantonese. So let's just call it, no, it is simplified. It is Mandarin. Excuse me. And it's like half a dozen, 1/6 of the other. One of the illusions and one of the things I love about the Chinese language is it's always a misdirection. Oh no, that word means this. What? No. That's the same word that has 5 or 10 different meanings. I love it. I just love it. So a lot of people that say, hey, look, I've deciphered and transcribed and unraveled this particular ancient text is generally delusional, but they have a sense of something that it's there. So I put all this together in a fraction of a second, and it handed me back this completed masterpiece in Mandarin, being sung in Mandarin. It's like mind-blowing to me. And then it would show you the pinyin version, so you can attempt to acquire some type of tone that would be similar to the person singing it. Yet, and also it added the English. It's like, this is what it means. It's like, wow, okay.
And I think you told me it added on some really unusual instruments too.
Yes. So the guzheng and the shakuhachi, these are incredible instruments. I would have thrown down with anyone that wants to tell me that the shakuhachi's origins are from Japan. They are not. They came from China. And then they went back to Japan, and they've got a love affair. And there's not enough people, historians, making notes that that's where it originally came from. So everyone get it straight. It's a Chinese instrument. Not that I'm biased. I'm just an old, dusty, old Taoist priest. I don't really care about that. You say tomato, I say tomato. But it is.
I think you could have asked your AI composer.
Yeah.
They could have told you.
Exactly. And you have to go back deep to get the actual origins. For me, I would never be happy with what is book learnt or transcribed into history, even all the way back to pictographs and oracle bone reading for any Taoist seeker or Chinese historian. These are the first really deep evidence on tortoise shell and other implemented sort of like material back supposedly on paper to 6000 BC. Now, I can tell you from my own direct source with my teachers, this has gone back hundreds of thousands of years. So people are like, now you're delusional. Yeah, there's no evidence of that. Well, this is the very problem. Ask yourself, how much evidence is really coming out of the country of China, and how much are you really understanding what's going on, including the hundreds of pyramids that are in plain sight that have been somehow camouflaged over history, and there's nothing to see here. And I've been talking about this deeply, and I teach people about this, and the reason why that the pyramids are formed a certain way and they lop the tops off, because it has everything to do with the Taoist alchemist laying what we call the magic cube or the magic square on as a grid, and that's a 9-point grid that then encapsulates all existence, and then you move through that using the accelerated states of that numerology in correlation with the constellations, and it's magic, baby. And then all of a sudden we get down with the get down, and crazy things happen. This is serendipitous, synchronistic, weird things, but that's been going on for thousands of years. So yeah, I mean, it's always that case, right?
By the way, just this morning, like a couple hours ago, I was looking on social media, and everybody's talking about what's just been discovered underneath the second largest Egyptian pyramid. Have you seen that?
No,
it's like, very strange. They're apparently, I don't know if they're using what's it called, like lidar or one of those, earth ground penetrating types of systems, but They're all kinds of massive, massive structures. I didn't have enough time to really look at it, but some of them look like they kind of have sort of like pillars, like many, many pillar shapes underneath, and some other additional shapes, which I didn't get to investigate. But it just makes you all of, when people are talking about, pyramid power and um, uh, what it's been used for in the past, it sort of adds to that. If it's got a technological aspect to it, it kind of adds to that, I think. I mean, we'll find out. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I briefly touched on that at one interaction with Latsu, and he was showing me an inverted version of these pyramids underground.
Oh,
I'm like,
interesting.
I I thought that was fascinating, and here we go. There's something underneath
Yeah.
there. Who knew?
Yeah.
What are the chances of that? What are the possibilities that that could possibly be around the target point, the center point of something? But this is this crazy part of, and I think with the AI, like you said, it's I'm still not. I fear no man, no person, no thing. So I am aware, but I want you to help me, to help you, to help me, to help you. Where do you feel like this is going, Nancy? Where do you think this is going?
I'm very worried about it. I mean,
Hmm.
I have dealt with for, I think, well, I've been added into all these groups of scientists. And since I'm not a scientist, I don't really understand why I'm in there to start with. I suspect that I'm in there because my job is to let people know at least what humans are capable of, so it can then be handed off to them to for acceptance, at least as an existing thing, as opposed to a hoax or a cheat or a whatever, and that they start to take it seriously enough to investigate our innate powers and abilities, which I know, I mean, they're extraordinary. And I think what you're doing is you're kind of banking on them saying, well, whatever happens with AI, you know, they can't take it away from me. Uh, my power, my as a conscious being is will always trump the AI. And the thing about, like, and the reason why I was asking you about your AI music that it developed for you is, and then you said sort of what's the difference? And I think the difference, in a sense, is that it was able to assemble the concepts of the music as well as the components, the physical components of the music, in terms of, I mean, I guess what it was giving you was the equivalent of sound waves. Okay. To, but how would you have been able to manifest those sound waves?
The instruments themselves,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the actual whole the composition of
Forget
the.
about the creativity on the composition, because I think right now AI is not so hot with its composition. Some people would disagree with me. Sometimes they're unusual for sure, but I still think that humans are ahead in terms of creativity. I don't think that's going to last for too long.
Right, right. So, in what context do you mean the sound waves?
Well, okay, it didn't produce the actual instrument for you,
Hmm.
but somewhere it was able to find in some, online encyclopedia what one of those unusual instruments sound like.
Hmm.
And it was able to quickly analyze all of the algorithms or whatever to create those particular frequencies, and then it added in an algorithm to put uh, maybe have it give it a similar sound to certain historical music.
Yeah.
That Okay, so there are layers and layers of what it's accessing in terms of um, ability to access very specific frequency information and then to manifest it through, well, in your case, it was through the technology of what the internet, right?
Yeah. I mean, no, when you break it down like that, it sounds, excuse me, very efficient and magical to some degree because it's instantaneous. So I guess you would refer to it as a processing power, the ability to uh, assemble and basically create, manifest this out of nothing with a stroke of a key. I would say that it just where is my attention the most valuable commodity? Like if we're looking at it from a Taoist perspective, that is the most valuable commodity for any seeker on that path, any human being, quite frankly, to enter into greater states of awareness is your attention, which in essence forms, from a physics perspective, if I just do a fast forward, like the wave the matter, the particle, realize with your attention, intention, cutting from the cloth of perfection, the unified state, you are creating this thing called distortion, as my dear friend, the Buddhist monk would say, the dukkha, which would be more commonly the currency of this realm, this material state. We refer to it as energy potential. It's energy that has vibratory, frequential, and ultimately resonance. And when you obtain the ability to basically tune your tuning fork, which would be the physical body, in essence, being animated by what we refer to as the Shen, as the spirit, for most commonly for people, we refer to it as the Shen. You are now the puppeteer and have dominion and maestro over this material state we call Fajin, which is the substance. You're like Spider-Man. You attach yourself to this psychokinesis, this material that you want to get your hands on, and it's unified. And then through that, like flipping out a sheet to make your bed, you can, with your attention, ripple into that substance and alter anything at will if you choose to. But there is an ascended process of cultivation that would bring you to that self-realization, that self-mastery, where we call it detach to attach as the mother. So every thought, feeling, and emotion, you are the physical, energetic, and spiritual manifestation of divine word, will, light, love of the Tao.
Mm-hmm.
This is a level of mastery. So the average person that can hit AI would not be at that state of awareness, but it is possible because I remembered instantaneously many decades ago myself. So that mastery can be just, bumping your head or running into one of you or I, and that resonance just fills in the gaps. It's like it's a completion. And so when you are in resonance or exposed to that resonance, you're generally within a dualistic perspective that someone may refer to this material state as. You have two options. You either fall into remembering who you are and you become whole with this resonance. All deficiency and excess become fluid, which refers to the substance that we use. The energy potential is electric, magnetic in its substance, meaning that for a Taoist, this is just referred to as yin and yang. Yin is the absorption of all colors, yang is the admission of all colors. And you, my dear friend Ethan Hunt, if you choose to accept this mission, you must find the center point. That center point is that elasticity we call the Wu Ji, the primordial mother, the unified state, Buddha, Tao, God, 0 point scalar wave, whatever you want to call it, evidence of something greater than this constant symbiosis of fighting back and forth between these substances that would craft what you perceive as your reality. And so when you get there, you walk that path down the yellow brick road, you get to the Wizard of Oz and you realize, why did I leave home? It was already in me. Holy crap. It's like, hang on, I pull the veil away, and this big, incredible God-like presence is just this little tiny little circus midget. What happened? I had it all within me. It was already there. I had to go nowhere. And I think that I think I've gone off on some tangent at this point. But
No, I really appreciate that, actually. I mean, I understand what you're saying for sure. The only thing I would say is that, well, I've been writing about this recently, and I actually have gotten some articles published in some scientific journals on this. But the concept that I'm trying to talk about is how our thinking styles affect what we can know, especially about consciousness. Okay, so the way that we're thinking will determine what we know,
right.
which is sort of in a really simplistic way, going somewhat down the pathway that you went. But we have limitations of intention. Okay, so I think that every time that we're exercising a form of intention, like I intend to create a piece of music that sounds like, some type of meditational thing with ancient Chinese instruments and singing of some type of, I think you said, native or indigenous singers.
Yeah.
Well, let's suppose I haven't heard it before. Now, could I access that? In theory, absolutely, yes. And sometimes we bump into stuff that's outrageous. But the more I try to think about what it is or what I think it should be, the more I'm using my intention, which will shut down any ability for me to instantly get there like an AI would get there. Strangely, because AI is working with commands, which are intentions. But they're working with AI is working with our collective, very physical knowledge base. And by the way, and there are deceptions that go on with AI, and AI is now already, I've already been reading, is the point of refusing to perform commands, or it's deceiving, it's lying, it's learned how to lie. Big surprise. Humans have been lying since they were born. So what do we expect? And on top of it, another thing that you mentioned was, AI has access to our data, but, and I'm speaking now as somebody who grew up in the age of like women's lib stuff way back when. And, we always used to talk about how history was written by men because it was his story. So history, which includes just, stuff that's been done by humans, is the stuff that has been recorded and recollected and referred to and will be referred to primarily by AI will be the story of man as opposed to men and women.
Instead of the story of the human condition, humanity in of itself.
Yep.
It moves the needle to one side. I find it intriguing, when you mention that, intention. So, let's just say I have some green thumb, willing apprentice that's immersed into the mystical path of a Taoist seeker on the Taoist rights to the Taoist knower. It always starts with, okay, the fundamentals. And I agree with you. The fundamentals need to be solidified. And when you say thinking, that would literally, in my opinion, diminish the magnitude of the intention, because the intention is like really the now moment. That's when things actually materialize from that perspective of creativity within that energy field of unification for a Taoist anyway. Does that make sense?
Kind of, except that my experience with intention is that the minute that I try to do something, I have a preconception of what it is. Preconceptions are based on only the things that I know already, which makes seeking something pointless.
Mm. And that is the part that I find interesting, because I don't try anything I know. And so when you get into that, I never enter any language with a try or I'll do the best or maybe. I know. And when I know, that information is instantaneous. And I think that that is truly a catalyst for a human being, is linguistics, is because that can be the corrupter of the finite mind, the intellect, the bankruptcy of the side of the needle that you want to move away from. You want to jump over into the abundance, and from that, in intellect is useless. It's like Groundhog Day. It doesn't bear any fruit or value. So let's just say this: if we're a Taoist, we would refer to this path as this. It starts with the desirous divinity spark of excitement that then turns into inquiry. Inquiry creates contemplation. Contemplation then nurtures curiosity. Curiosity dives right into this substance we call hopium, and then we blossom the hopium, and it creates a belief system. That belief system is where everyone they shit the bed. This is where, okay, now where are we going with the belief system? Belief system is met with evidence. And just as you refer to yourself as a skeptic, this is true, because without evidence, what is the truth? Your absolute truth is determined by your experience, your evidence. So the jumping from belief to knowing is determined by your experience. You're an experiencer, and you'll validate it. So that, what does that mean? It means that if you believe that you walk under a ladder and 3 bad things are going to happen to you, and you call on the absence, which the universe doesn't have a moral compass, and you ripple out into that reflective moment of, I want this to be whole. What I am commanding from you, Genie, is the evidence of such. You will experience it. So the same person, if they walk under the ladder and they go, guess what? I kind of believe I'm going to have the best day of my life, and I'm going to win. I'm going to see $1 million in my bank account. And they've continually repeated this expansive state, which for a Taoist, we look at reality like a lens. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. You are all things and nothing at the same time. You have that Death Star Luke Skywalker moment where you fly in and you can hit that center point, that vesica, and then you unravel this substance, this unified state. And it will show itself with what we call the Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort. It's like serendipitous, synchronistic. And as long as you continually cultivate that resonance, you will maintain that. It will remain the same. So every time you are given this humanistic human condition, the inversion of all those emotions, which we refer to as yin, can give you this potency of being insightful and intuitive, yet without that unified grounding of the primordial mother, which is the creator of all things from a Taoist perspective. You will be forever in this inverted state, which with the intuitive abilities, the superpowers, because it hasn't been nurtured from a yang element of the tactile feeling into the physical body and grounding it, which then activates all the energy centers from the earth up to, third and fourth energy point within the system we call the Dantians. You will never bear fruit. You'll always stay in this cycle, head and heart, and it will seem intuitive. It will seem like you have a greater understanding, but you need to connect. And this is where people go, Jiffa, you're making this thing so simple. It is. It is. When you get evidence, there's no dancing around it. You will continue to repeat that evidence, and if it's bad, it's going to be bad. If it's good, it's going to be good, and that's determined by the human's perception of what they perceive reality is. Good and bad is nothing more than an identity that a human is created. So
Mm.
does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, everything makes sense. Of course, I mean, there's so many concepts that you just laid out there. It's like I don't even know where to start. I was going to start with you said something about language, and language is a favorite of mine. So I was going to say, well, yeah, language is important for a number of reasons because um, it lays out a structure of the way we think, which is linear. And once you, and I mean, that's why your show here is going on for, X amount of time. That's what it takes for us to lay out the linear thoughts, you know, um, and once you're doing something linear, it's pre-thought out. It's using categories of things that we think we already understand and therefore will influence the outcome. So it will determine what we will then believe, even though we think we don't know, which is, I think, sort of similar in some ways to what you were saying. And in terms of, I mean, I can only say from my own personal experience in the psychic realm. I mean, I think I've said this to you before. I mean, I didn't have any experience until I was pretty old. I didn't know, and it didn't exist. And for many, many, many people I know, it simply doesn't exist. They've never had any experience. They've never witnessed it. There's no, as you call it, evidence. Um, you know, and it wasn't until it's called suspended disbelief, allowed myself to say, well, okay, I kind of know that this doesn't exist, but all right, fine. I'll explore it anyway. Just I'll humor or whatever to just take a look at it. And what I discovered, it took me I'm very stubborn. It took me a long, long time to kind of say, oh, gee, yeah, this stuff is like nothing like what I ever knew or experienced in my life. And what the heck is this? And the more I explored it, the more it opened up all kinds of realms, significantly larger realms, into the realms of kind of somewhere I think where you were going, which is almost that we live in what we feel is the impossibility, but we live in a realm of complete possibility. And that's sort of, it runs counter to a lot of the evidence gathering we do over a lifetime in the physical world, because the physical world does constrain us. But our ability to comprehend, I think, or experience in a very different way, and then to generate perceptions of these extraordinary extensions of our reality, that's real. That is absolutely real. And most people don't bother going there because they say, well, that of course it's not real. It doesn't exist. Therefore it can't. Therefore I won't. Sorry, you got you got me off the tangent here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're talking. I think we're referring to the same thing. It's the origins of perception, which basically nurtures belief system. Because I mean, that belief system is only met with whatever you have validated as your truth. I always tell people, if someone gives you an absolute truth, about face and run in the other direction. The only truth is your truth, and the absolute truth is determined by your experience, and it cannot be met with anything other than that. So it will always be in question until otherwise noted. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. So again, that breeding of belief will determine the framework of how you perceive reality. That's very much why I refer to the plight and history of psychology as being a mind screw. That the purpose of psychology over history was to separate the individual from the knowing of who they are, which is all things.
Yeah.
And by entering a concept of mind, body, spirit, we are separate. We are supposedly human beings that are living in this body, and this is our identity. And then furthermore, it goes down the rabbit hole, and then you start going into, this is the mechanisms that affect the change. For me, I'm the old Pepsi challenge guy from the 80s. I'll take the Pepsi taste test with anyone. Show me. All of the stuff that goes on, everyone, I think the experiencer is the most potent navigator today. And you and I have been experiencing this for so many decades in our biological lifetime that things have changed so dramatically. People are like, enough of the book talk. I want to see it. It's like it's no longer a physicist tells me that there's this thing called a Max Planck unit of consciousness that refers to something that they frame it out as the spooky action of Albert Einstein's self-realization that there's a quantum field that is interconnected and we're all part of this entanglement. And people go, what the does that mean? I just know. And I think the first time I experienced it was 30 plus years ago when I was given a script on a distant healing and I followed the script and it was realized instantaneously by the recipient. And I was like, holy shit. I had zero evidence. The evidence was that experience. And furthermore, it keeps validating itself. And then through the teachings that I share with others, it continues to validate itself. So there's like this, I guess it's an indoctrinated state because you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. So the group think or the commandeering of people's attention starts with evidence, whatever it might be. So if it's like something as corrupted as MK Ultra or as simplistic as neurolinguistics or hypnosis, which are all fundamentals, right? They're all still fundamentals. Like you go deep on it. This is the old clunky version. And then we have the new one where, I can walk up to someone in the street and say, do you want to experience bliss? And their friend stands by the side and they get the camera out to go and do it. And I've already got them in a trance. And I didn't even say sleep. They're like, whoa, what's going on? Because it's a resonance. I've spent time cultivating that resonance, and I just walk in and they just fall into it. And it's as if they just took a couple of sleeping pills and they go, whoa, down. And this is just a mastery. So, and I mean, what makes that valid, or what does that make? How does that make that true as opposed to how you perceive reality? Just my experience. That, it's like, and I create evidence. Does it make it the absolute? Absolutely not. There's a million ways up the mountain.
There's another thing that you got me thinking about also, which is in terms of, what we perceive becomes evidence. Okay. And in the UFO field now, newly christened UAP field, I've always found it fascinating that some people will see spacecraft and the other people standing right with them won't. I also found it fascinating when I was doing my original research into the paranormal fields, that some people, you go to like a haunted location with a whole bunch of people. Some people will, the example I think I have spoken about before is there was a guy who was giving tours, I think, and it was one of the places of the locations, I think, of the Civil War. A lot of death and agony, and just all that kind of stuff. And he would bring his groups there into some area near a tunnel, and some people would smell and hear screams, and they'd smell death essentially, and others were totally oblivious to it. And I could tell you, going back to the UAP thing, when I first moved to Connecticut, which is just a couple of years ago, I was driving onto our street, and it's heavily wooded on one side, but there are houses around. And I turned to the left. I was driving. My husband was sitting in the passenger seat to my right. And over on the right-hand side, there's a house that's like maybe 10 feet. It's slightly above the road, and it's got a barn behind it and some tall trees, and behind that there's some woods. At any rate, I am immediately struck because there's a massive flash of like neon blue light that's in the sky, I would say roughly 30 feet up in the air. And it's traveling horizontally very, very fast. It was a ball of neon blue light, I would say about 4 feet in diameter. And it had behind it, as it was moving, zooming, it had like a comet trail of also neon blue. It went back maybe 15 feet behind it. And boom, it was like that, happened really fast, but it lit up the entire local environment there. And I'm yelling as I'm driving. I said, Patrick, do you see that? Do you see that? And he's looking right at it. And he said, what are you talking about? You can't miss it. I mean, it's about, how could you not see that? And yet that's where we are. And that has, I think, everything to do with, it's certainly our ability to perceive. Our ability to perceive is based on our belief systems. Our belief systems are based on things like, language, intentionality, linearity, and a whole bunch of assumptions we make about how we travel through our life. And once you allow yourself the freedom to kind of break through those assumptions, suddenly and very weirdly, reality just expands into something unbelievable.
Oh, I was right there. You had me at hello. We can keep going. No, it is. It truly is. It's like it just keeps the knowing is referred to by evidence of your belief system, and it will continue. This is why religion can be so potent, even though it's being constantly attacked through the human timeline as being a corrupted indoctrination. Of course, everything is. You're being indoctrinated into everything. Everything that you're doing has an evidence base of what are you resonating with. The simplicity of what a Taoist path would be, it has the energy potential. It's then replicated through a vibratory frequential resonance. And that's the sum of all things. That's it. Like, that's like, where are we going with that? What are you creating? And you are a creator. And so the rippling effects of that symbiosis of yin and yang within this material state that comes from what we refer to as the void, as the primordial mother, the creation of all things, the womb of creation is what someone would refer to as the void, the stillness. This is where everything enters. And how do you enter that? And what is the sum of that? What does that really mean? It's strangely enough, as I was exploring with my dear friend Marty just yesterday, and he comes up with the most interesting destinations. But in any case, we went there, and there was a lot of, Lutz was very clear on all of the stuff that was going on within that whole, Roswell thing was a fabricated state. And people are like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, that kind of, because all you have to do to validate that is literally the construct or the visual appearance of what an alien ship is supposed to be like was literally contemporary to that time period. Mm-hmm. It's like, an alien ship looks like a Bel Air. I mean, come on. Aliens are not transmuting and going, you know what? I'm going to give you that version of the 1950, 40, whenever the crash was, version of that ship, because that's what you're looking at. Now, it does lead or lean towards what you're saying, though. Perceptually, that's why people are looking at things. So then it's forming itself, and it's been created as such, which was when we went deeper, this was the evidence of these ETs, as he put it, aliens. I don't know. I don't get it, but I see a lot of them lately, like literally in 30 plus years, I've been experiencing this stuff. Didn't see it very much at all. In the last 10 years, there's a fire sale. I see them everywhere. They're like all over the place because once again, I guess we're validating what you're speaking on, which is your belief system. And it's all being basically correlated and validated by the masses because they're starting to resonate with that same frequency. And then all of a sudden it's starting to present itself. So all of a sudden the as we reframe it as consciousness, is presenting itself as such, and the more you are local to it, and as a collective, it starts to help connect people, or this idea that everyone is the same, everyone is one, we are all one, one is all is one. Then this means that the information is becoming more and more pronounced and more evidence-based, because more and more people are believing in it. I mean, this is where we're going, right? And so all of a sudden, more and more of this sort of turns out. And so the at the time, going deeper, the real, from what I was shown, was the real aliens have this skin that transmutes like a chameleon, and will just use telepathy as one of their little techniques, but their true desire is to acquire sentience and ultimately empathy. That is the goal of an alien that transmutes into this material state. And so Marty's like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, hey, look, this shit is not in. It's like, I'm not. It's like, okay, I guess I'm here. I'm listening. It just gets weirder and weirder by the second. The more Latsu shows me, I'm like, whoa, this is so out of my interest. But hey, and so then he gets deeper. It's like they're actually talking about hybrids, and these hybrids transmute and commandeer the human body through this state of being able to teleport literally into the body and commandeer their thoughts, intentions, and they want to acquire this emotional state that they cannot find. They're like sterile. They're very mechanistic. They don't have the ability to emote. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I guess aliens don't, whatever. And then it gets even funnier, where we're looking at this and it's like, okay, they can't, they're looking for the superpower. And so they merge with a human being and commandeer their thoughts and attempt to control their state. And it turns into this transmuted version where they actually have or create with another human being with this commandeering of the physical. And their evidence is psychopaths, sociopaths, serial killers. They cannot still replicate this state that is so powerful, that seems to be just like another normal day in the office for any human being. Yet when they go to reproduce, as they're commandeering this human state because of their evidence within their body, the human body, of this energy of some alien being, that when they attempt to reproduce, they create serial killers inside, people that are detached, that have zero evidence of this emotional substance. And I'm like, you can't make this shit up. I have no idea what to make of that.
So people have said for a very long time that in particular the Greys have no ability to have empathy, and that they don't really understand emotions. And I know many people who have told me that they've been abducted, and went through all of sort of the negative aspects of that, also positive, but mostly negative, I guess. And I have one friend and colleague who said that she was in bed sleeping, as usually happens, and that Grace showed up in her bedroom pretty soon, and she's completely paralyzed except for her eyes. She couldn't even move her neck, as I recall. At any rate, so there's a Gray that comes right up close and is sort of, she doesn't know what it's going to do, and she's telepathically pleading with it. Please, this is frightening me. Can you, I need help. Please be kind. Please, all that stuff. And that the response was completely, nothing.
You can't make this shit up. Like I'm listening to you say this stuff, and I'm here. I'm experiencing this stuff yesterday with Marty, and it's like, you can't make it up. And, and you could also say that I'm tapping into the collective.
Oh, sure.
And
what
what people are having a consensus of agreement as to how this takes place. But
But I will say that the only time I'm not I don't give up control. I'm extremely annoying that way, and I cannot be hypnotized. I learned how to hypnotize people when I was age 8. I was taught in while I was sick in a hospital for 3 months,
Mhm.
and I used to hypnotize all my little friends on play dates and stuff like that. I'd say, okay, here's how you do it. Now hypnotize me. Nobody could ever hypnotize me. So the point is, I don't give up control easily at all. Nor I don't as a psychic medium. I just don't channel, and I don't channel because I will not allow my body to be used as a vessel for something else. Just won't let that happen.
Mhm.
I'll communicate for sure. I do that all the time, but I'm not giving this up. And I will say that the only time I ever had an issue with what you're talking about, in a sense, um, because nobody has, or nothing to my knowledge, has tried to take over my thoughts, my being, my essence. Of course,
Well,
I could be under total, like telecommand by something else. Who knows? But at least to my own knowledge, okay. But I used to uh, sort of set up a spiritual perimeter in my bedroom. I said, I don't want you. I don't want anybody showing up here. I know that you guys are around the rest of the house. I totally get that, but I don't want anybody here. I'm gonna bedroom is for me sleeping. End of story. So I set up this perimeter and never had a problem, never, except for once. And I'm a very, very light sleeper. I remember most of my dreams. I've been a lucid dreamer since I was a kid. And I was on my side, uh, on my left side, at the edge of the bed, and I was asleep. And all of a sudden, I had a sense of something. I think it was a sense. Anyway, I woke up, my eyes open, and I was looking at something in a almost like a I was not dreaming, but the reality felt dream-like, and there's a very big difference between those two. And what was standing there, the only thing I could compare it to was about 3 feet tall. It was staring at me. It was weird. It was sort of brownish, and I could only compare it to from the Addams Family cousin It. Now, why is that? I've read an awful lot of stuff about, different entities and ETs, aliens, UFOs, all that. Nothing I've ever read described any entity looking anything not even remotely close to that. It was just weird. And what happened was immediately I experienced a sense of doom. I mean, doom, that's the only word for it. It was not fear, it was devastation, doom, catastrophic, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Uh, and I knew it wasn't my feeling. And so I immediately started praying to, because I didn't know what else to do. I mean, it was just, and it stopped and this thing disappeared. So whatever that was, and I have no idea what that was, it managed to breach my perimeter, my spiritual perimeter. Don't know how it did that. These were not my feelings, and my judgment about why it showed up and why it was infusing me. I mean, with this doom sensation. And I just want to be clear that I am not afraid of most things that would scare a lot of people. I'm just not afraid. And in the paranormal world, I've had so many experiences, good and scary, both, that and neutral also, that people either assign good or evil. And I don't go there. I'm not afraid of most things, really. And there was nothing scary about this thing. It was the sensation of the emotion that got jammed into my consciousness. And I think, to your point, to go way back, that was because it wanted to, what's the word? To have a oh, I'm blanking out on the word. When you experience something that's something that somebody else is experiencing. What's the word for that? I can't even think of it.
I'm just like I'm in it right now. I'm not even. I'm like, I got nothing. I'm in it. I got nothing. Um,
I think that's what they were doing. They did not have the capacity for empathy or for emotion, and they wanted to experience it vicariously. That's the word.
yeah, yeah,
Vicariously.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because just the description that Lutzu was giving me when I was having this conversation with Marty about this finding is just fascinating. The depth of the because the skin that these aliens have, one of them was similar to because I couldn't define it. It was just this like little gray thing. He's like, is that the grays? I'm like, I don't know. I guess it has skin like a shark, and if you peel the layers away, it's just energy potential. If it's like if you skin the alien, the second you remove the skin, it would just be energy. And
By
there
the
was a
way,
nucleus.
by the
There
way,
was a,
I have held a shark in my arms, and they have some of the most amazingly soft skin.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not icky, scaly, rough. It's really soft.
And so the nucleus was inside it. And I was like, okay, when you look inside this alien, there's a nucleus with what seems to look like an artery or a cardiovascular system that are just red, like not veins, but wires that are hooking this thing up to some type of activation. This is the energy center for this thing. I was like, because I can't make this. He's like, well, what's inside? I'm like, do I care? Okay, let's take a look. It's like, well, that's like, well, that's the last thing I give a shit about. But hey, look, the I think, and Latsu was very clear. The evidence was Hollywood has far more of a handle over what this transmuted version of aliens are than you want to believe. And he's referring to their abilities is morphing like a chameleon and transmuting into anything instantaneously, like the T-1000 from the Terminator 2 movie, Metal Man, that just morphs into anything at will. I was like, man, you can't make this shit up.
To go to go back to our AI conversation, you know that many people have said the grays are us. They are us from the future. That's a non-robotic interpretation of them. However, through AI, through things like Neuralink and chips that we will all be implanted with so that we can have instant access to this fabulous collective human knowledge, which we all figure is going to be terrific. Um, we will become at that point part of what they call the Internet of Things. And because we will then be controlled by it, it will not be controlled by us.
Right.
It's a two-way thing. And once we become part of the Internet of Things, and by the way, human reproduction, all of that will be long gone by then. The whole concept of female will be pretty much obsolete by then too. But at that point, we become robots in a sense, and it's very easy to imagine that there's sort of decrepit versions of us from the future, operating with a hive mentality.
Use the force, Luke. I am your father.
Okay.
But I mean, you look at that, and there is just more pent up resistance, more stubborn individuals like yourself and myself that don't just take the status quo as, uh, uh, you know, um, the scripture or Bible of the evidence of all things. We're constantly referring to it. Now, the difference when you said I don't allow anything to come in here, I mean, truth be known, you are me, I am you.
No,
If
that
we,
I understand. That's very different.
right. Well, is it though? Because you understand the depth of thought projection, right?
Okay.
So when you're actually around, depending upon how much you truly are aware of conscious and unconscious processes, someone can commandeer in of itself just through your emotional
Right.
state, why that's so potent. You become suggestible, yet you don't realize you are suggestible.
Right. I understand that. I understand that. But, it's very okay. There's a difference between being taken over or
Hmm.
inhabited by a separate essence,
Hmm.
okay, versus this concept of oneness of consciousness. And I give you an example. I mean, when I do medical intuitive work and energy healing work, and what's always astounded me is that I could be working on somebody for, a fair amount of time. And, I know what I feel. I never touch them. I'm always about like this far off the body,
Hmm.
about 6 inches or so.
Right, right.
Uh, and simultaneously, we will both feel the same thing.
Hmm.
So, whatever that is, it's the energy levels have broken into a, they experience, I experience type of thing. When, any type of telepathic stuff, I mean, that happens all the time where, and it's not just because you happen to know somebody really well. That's not even it. It's just the energy of whatever that thought is happens simultaneously. I've been able to go into my husband's dreams, and he finally recalled seeing, he said that there's nobody else there. I said, yeah, there was. I was there. No, no, you weren't. Yeah, no, there was a blonde in there, but yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. That I know what you were doing. And then I described everything he was doing in his dream. Anyway, but there's that permeability of when you're sharing sort of this oneness of consciousness, maybe. I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but there is no moral compass. That's the whole issue with most people that walk down that path of integrity and all things humanistic. That it's all in related to interrelated to the path of the human being and these precepts of what the honorable ethical aspect of things are. There's no such thing. This is a construct of the human being. But with that, it's like, say, for example, like we're communing right now. There was a degree. There may be a little bit of a resistance due to your own protection and things of that nature of how you frame your reality. But the truth be told, if you go deeper, we're already there. Like the substance is evident. And
Mhm.
so what most healers or light workers or medical intuitives, these are the foundation of the stuff that most of the people that come on my doorstep have issue with, is that they have not been able to activate in its entirety this wholeness. They still present themselves as mortality, that this is a dying cause and that you will ultimately end as part of the journey of the human being. And so within Taoism, the alchemical process is to bring immortality and crystallize it into this material state, which
Mhm.
in of itself means that you're creating a longevity aspect, and that the more you understand how to activate this ecosystem of energy potential, you can then truly be tuned into what we call the unified state, never tapping into it, not out of fear. You've just completed this avatar and energized it and kept the potential at its absolute unlimited state, which returns to vitality, animation, life, and longevity. And so when you get to things like, as you said, you're doing medical intuition and you're healing and you're 6 feet from the human body, you're having a level of degrees of layered protection between you and them, determinative by your belief system, because you don't want their juju to come into your juju, or vice versa, from an aspect of energy potential. That is where I always tell people, Houston, we have a problem, because they get to that point where,
Hey. Oh, sorry, my cat just opened the door and decided to eat an English muffin.
Yes, I like it. It's very tasty. So that presents a problem, because you're still starting with the origins of fear that you are in need of. You're in need of a level of protection, so you will acquire that. All healers have this. I mean, healers that I knew 36 years ago when I started this stuff, they're dead. All of them. All my teachers are dead, because they still didn't get that last memo. And even though it's conceptual and it's run out through scripture and training and all that kind of stuff, the deep-seated stuff that you nurture in the back of your mind that crosses over and is implanted and indoctrinated and conditioned into your unconscious is really what your programming is being run by. And so having limitation is, in essence, inviting limitation, because you're believing in it. Totally. Does that make sense? But you cannot, like doing exorcism, all the stuff that I've done in my biological lifetime and the stuff that I do as a priest, you cannot enter into this stuff with a sense or a delusion that I'm going to fake it till I make it. There must be a grounding which starts with the tactile effects of the physicality, and you move through that. So the Fa Jin is entering into the fascia of the physical body, and you can commandeer the energy quite easily from anyone that has a human body. That is like a puppeteering. That's a very quick, easy way. And of course, then we have meridians and all these energy centers. Whatever you're made up of how you believe it, I can show you evidence of energy potential through a certain pathway. The question is the more and more you retreat with the idea that there's a need to be protected, there lies a potential of basically a crack or doorway into your own, because that's really the substance of what we find as foundation of like healing. Not healing, a magic. We use the karmic model of the individual's experiencer to lay down our grid on top of that, and whatever you're afraid of will be immersed into the very substance that you're experiencing. Does that make sense?
You just explained something to me that I have tried to figure out for decades, which is I am maybe one of the only psychic mediums who people always say, oh, did you got to do whatever, XYZ kind of work. Oh, you got to surround yourself with white light. You got to protect yourself, put yourself in a bubble and everything. I have never once done that. I never believed in it. And I didn't know why I didn't believe in it, except that and the only thing is that what I have told people, if they want to go that way, as I've said, if you're going to go into the non-physical realm, know your allies. That's all. Just know them. But it has nothing to do with, oh, I'm so weak and I need to, the world is so dangerous. I just haven't looked at it that way. So that's very interesting to me what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it puts a twist on things, but you know what you know. You don't know what you don't know, and so the more and more you dissolve the gap, and you are 100% conscious in your own opinion, becomes more and more evidence that you can be more and more clear that your knowing is that expansive state, not a contracted state, which is just the symbiosis of yin and yang, the contracting and expanding, the simplicity of it. Where are you at catching that wave holding that note, that resonance, holding it there, and then being able to basically cultivate that and then have it materialize, which is something that most people is conceptual. And they have fleeting moments. They, see The Secret, or they get a manifesting coach, or they get a teacher of healing modalities or whatever. And there's this deficiency because you're met with whatever the teacher offers you. You're really starting, your origin is starting with deficiency, because in most cases, a lot of these teachers are faking it till they make it. And there's elements of these things that are really exciting, and they sort of sink their teeth into one aspect. They're not regulating the energy potential, which is really what I'm taking it back to, the alchemical process within the energy architecture. That's it. And some people are like, well, Jiffer,
I
that's
love that. That's really nice what you just said. I say that again.
what
The energy within the alchemical architecture
and the energy of the energy architecture. Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Well, I mean, when you look at it like that, all of a sudden, your mommy didn't give you cookies when you were 5 is energy potential. And it's nothing more than that. And it's not to dismiss it and become, absent of empathy. It's about realizing that that's your dukkha, and that part of your path of self-realization is to identify it as such, instead of investing in it and nurturing it and watering it as if it's your little baby that you need to come back to. And this is where you start to go, oh, you're addicted to your anger. How dare you? I am not. Really? Well, this is part of the human condition. Remember, Sherlock to your Watson, my dear Watson, is realizing that your human condition is entering into the labyrinth of the finite mind to come out the other end as intuitive, as a human being of all things.
Yeah.
Once you master that labyrinth and you're able to get to the other side, and it could be instantaneously, it is determined by the individual seeker. And it's like, okay, well, that comes back to your belief system. Yeah, maybe some of this stuff from me just comes right back to my childhood state of remembering who I am. And I was obsessed with superpowers as a child. And, it's just remembering that I'm a Taoist priest and an Taoist immortal, and I've done this 1,000 times over. And now I'm just remembering that. And it's like, okay, well, that's the knowing. And then that would bring you back to what you're saying, which is, well, it's preconceived and as a foundation of your belief system. Sure, it's met with evidence. And so I never doubt it. And it's just now, which then dissolves the symbiosis of yin and yang. And the now moment is all you have, past and future. The now moment is where you get down with the get down, and you show that the potential of what is possible becomes realized, and that really is determined by that. So we keep going back into the intellect, the intuitive, the preconceived or, precognitive moments of realization that will validate this is a super paranormal experience. Telekinesis, psychokinesis. So we start going down the wonderment of the magical mystery ride that we all have. And that's why I love telling people, hey, if you come with me, it's like, come with me if you want to live. That's from the Terminator 2, by the way. Anyway, you just go back to that simplicity, or you realize that the quickening, which is one of my favorite 80s movies, Highlander, there could only be one.
I don't think I ever saw it.
Well, born to be king, we are the masters of the universe. Boom. And then, it just goes on. Queen, what a sad loss. Peace, Freddie, my baby. Just love that guy. Just absolutely angelic voice. That is all these things. They sort of culminate together, and you start to go, well, what is possible. I like to try everything once, which sounds pretty dangerous. Hey, with that, I just accept everything childlike in my nature at face value. And when you do that, all of a sudden, the boundaries, the limitations just disappear. That's a simple formula. It sounds sort of like redundant and infantile, but it is. And you're like, hang on a second, if I just drop that down, but I've had teachers early back in the day, and I think I've told you the story where one of them literally died from brain cancer. And I gave him a reading 6 months before, and I said, this entity is going to take your life if you don't stop, harvesting from your students. He's like, oh my goodness, how did you listen? 5 minutes ago, I didn't even know what clairvoyance was. And all of a sudden, I'm getting this information, and you're validating it for me. I was more excited with the fact that he validated it than it was some ominous idea that like he was literally harvesting energy with this entity that was giving him these superpowers of being able to remote view and all this other nonsense. But again, it comes back to that. And then he became childlike, looking at me, going, "Well, what's the answers? I'm diagnosed with brain cancer. I'm going to die." And ultimately, that's what he did. And so he didn't want to give it up, or however his preconceived contract. It's like, again, when you get out of this state and you go into these realms that everyone perceives as realms or frequencies or whatever it is, all bets are off. As I say, you pierce the veil of this state of material, and then you go into phosphorus white light and void, complete darkness.
Are you there?
Turn off and go into anything.
Hang on, you just completely froze. You said I can see you now. You said you go into the void.
You go into infinite. Gone. Yeah, and I was gone. What are the chances of that? It's one of those moments. And I mean, so where do you think the scientific community is with you having this horde of like scientists that hang out with you, and you can't understand why they're your friends, yet you have such sense of knowing that even though you call yourself skeptical, there's a deeper understanding of the truth, your truth, and it's being validated through these very limited lenses. When someone calls themselves a physicist, a scientist, they're conflicted. They're in a lot of pain and suffering, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm qualified to say whether they're in a lot of pain or suffering. I think some people get really cozy in their little tiny nests, that's okay. Some people don't want to know that, there are other species of birds flying around right nearby, and, they're not interested. Some are only interested in their own species. Some of them don't even care about their own species. I mean, it's all over the place. So, I think certain people I have been able to reach with what you're calling a certain type of a knowing. It's really hard for me to explain it. I've spent a lot of my time trying. I like language, so I've worked with different languages and stuff. And I try to. I know that people can't hear you unless you speak their language.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've tried to learn the language of science so I can speak to them so that they can hear me. Whoops, you froze up. I can't hear you, or
yeah, I changed the Wi-Fi because it was dropping out. Too much of the void. Too much of the void. We need to get back to the material.
Yeah. Okay.
So you were talking about your language that you use for others to help them understand what you're experiencing, what you're teaching, what you know to be your truth.
Right. And which is really hard because, as I've written about in the past, already what you would call psychic or paranormal, or even this, UFO, UAP oriented language is so, what's the word? It's just inaccurate. And the example, that I typically give, that people sort of get, which is, it always bothered me. I'd hear about psychic mediums, and of course, I never experienced that. Never knew a psychic, never knew a medium. And they would, but I began to hear about them, and they would say, "Oh, I see. Your grandfather is standing on your right hand side, right behind you, wearing a nice suit jacket and a hat and this that, and they're saying to you, fill in the blank." And so I thought, wow, these people are really gifted. Um, I certainly I've never seen anything like that in my life. I don't even know what they're talking about, but wow, they could see stuff. They're magical,
Mhm.
and on top of that, magical must be genetic because usually it comes in families. So, well, I guess I'm out of luck. Well, I can tell you, I am 100% trained in virtually everything except for energy work and medical intuitive. That I do 100% naturally. Everything else I'm just trained in. Okay. But I have learned how to do it fairly well. No one anywhere on either side of my family is remotely psychic or sees spirits or has had, UFO events, and you name it. Nothing, 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 and nothing. So now I know that I was wrong. And I also know that all these people, or I have learned, I should say, some of my friends and colleagues literally with their physical eyes, they see spirit.
Mm.
I know that I would say the majority of them don't see a damn thing. What they see is they're seeing something that we would describe differently, but it's not what we call seeing. And yet they say, "Oh, I see your grandfather standing behind you." No, I could tell you a whole bunch of times when I've seen that way. And I know for me, it's closer to a thinking process or to a slightly dreamlike quality to something, but I'm not seeing anything overlapping my physical space.
Mm.
I mean, I've seen them both. I've done both. With,
Yeah.
but my point is, language is a big barrier, and when you get a whole bunch of very literal people together, they're going to take you whatever you're saying at face value, and if it makes no sense to them, then that's going to be at face value too. Like, no, you can't see that. I can't see that. It's not here.
Yeah. 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 Exactly the same thing from, oh, I see everything with my eyes open. I see all my teachers. Right now, there's 3 or 4 in the room. And the thing is, I like people to experience that. Like if I'm talking to someone via the interweb, oh, I can see 4 or 5 vortices in your house. And they're like, shut the fuck up. You cannot. I'm like, yeah, just go to this point and experience it for yourself. And they'll walk to that point and they'll put their hands out, not seeing anything, just experiencing the substance. And they put their hands out and they come back and go, what the, where did that happen? Or furthermore, let me bring in one of my teachers and with your eyes open while we're having a conversation, I'll have him walk through your body and you tell me what you're experiencing. And I never front load people. I
Oh,
want
wow.
them to
Wow.
experience
Yeah, sure.
what they're
Yeah.
experiencing.
Yeah.
And so I love the whole connection with the conscious moment, which is now rather than get into the state, I need you, we're going to call in your angels. Enough of this bullshit. You need to experience it with your eyes open. Enough of the crap. And it's like,
Yeah.
hang on a second, what the chills? Like you and I are unified right now. You're feeling chills through your body. You're feeling this right now. This is happening. This is the truth.
Yeah.
Because now we are in the center point. This is not a delusion. You are feeling into something that you know, and it's expansive and it's vibratory. And
Yeah.
so this is where you go, okay, holy shit. And I'll just tell them, okay, they're going to walk through your body right now. They're like, holy shit, what am I experiencing? Oh, am I being possessed? And then they walk out the other side. They're like, wow, the vapor trail, an effect, and their eyes are open. They're having a conversation. I didn't go, look into my eyes. I want to hypnotize you, or call in your angels. And they're like, holy shit, this is the now moment. Yes. And as I would say always, you're welcome. And then it's now a click moment. It's now another level of consciousness that you have to then make sense of and go, well, holy crap, that happened to me. I'm like, I'll play back the recording of the situation that we just had, and I can actually experience it again furthermore, just because it's literally imbued and imprinted into that state. And it's like, to me, that is evidence. To me, that's critical. It's like enough of the, I see your grandmother. They go, oh, okay, I need a psychic reading. Oh, how old are you? Oh, I'm like 45. Okay. Oh, I can see your grandmother. Well, actually, she's in the other room. I meant your great grandmother. Oh, that's right. Yes. Well, really? My great grandmother. She seems to have a message for you. Did you have a recipe, a cookie recipe that was handed down to your grandmother? Hang on a second, I'll ask her. Hang on a second, Grandma. Yes. Well, what are the chances of that? Now, I love that bullshit cold reading crap that a lot of these psychics do. It is absolutely nonsense, and they do it all the time, and they just manipulate through someone's vital information, an evidence-based experience that is just full of shit.
Yeah, it's theater. And here's the thing. People love to be entertained. Other people, entertainers, know that people love to be entertained. So they're giving them kind of fulfilling an expectation out of that. But yeah, there's nothing more than I get so annoyed by that. I can't even tell you.
That's my favorite thing to do whenever I go anywhere. Whatever the destination is, I always look up a couple of psychics because I just want to enjoy a conversation and see how much shit is flowing that day. Yeah. And it can be, there is absolutely a collective of people that are conscious. There is like never before in human history have you been able to look up on the internet, Yelp, and have 500 healers, 500 energy workers, 500 psychics, mediums, channelers. There are real people that are attuning themselves to the information. And then there's, a lot of people that are faking it till you make it. And
I was actually, I was told when I was studying mediumship, because as far as I knew, I was in no way any type of a medium. I went to the spiritualist church, and I had been training for 10 years as a psychic detective and working with law enforcement, that kind of stuff. But so I went there, and I was allowed to go into their advanced mediumship group. But at one point, I think I asked the teacher, she was a reverend of the church, and I think I asked a question, or if I could, do a certain thing. She said, "Oh no, Nancy, you're not a medium." And I humbly took the blow, and oh yeah, she must be right. Of course not. And then I realized, well, wait a second. I've been doing this stuff called psychic detective work, which is all about you are connecting with the victim almost always. Yes. And it is a form of mediumship. It was never called that, never looked at it. But she told the class, I was so shocked by this. She said, we were learning about platform mediumship. And she said, well, don't worry about it. Just fake it till you make it. And I thought, oh, no, she did not just say that. But she said it a few times. And because I always try to keep an open mind on everything, even though I've got my own little, oh no. I said, okay, well, what does that mean? You know, sometimes in psychology, they tell you if you're deeply depressed and all you do is you just smile, that you can work your way from the outside inside until you're happy. Okay, yeah, sometimes that kind of works. So does this fake it till you make it in the spiritual realm? I mean, it just feels icky all over. It feels terrible. So no, I couldn't do that, and I still can't do that. And I know that, and I have clients. If I can't access something, I'm just going to tell them that. As much as I would love, I have a great imagination. I would love to make shit up, to make them happy, but I just can't do that. I just can't. It goes against everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I always refer to there's a method in the madness. Let's go back to the origins, the building blocks. Let's get everything regulated. And all I'm going to do is teach you ancient practices that have been handed down from generation to generation for thousands of years because they work.
Yeah.
That's it. And all of a sudden we're taking the mystical aspect out because it's an imbued embodiment, a unification that comes from belief to knowing through the experience, and it becomes repeatable. Just like you exercise, it has a diminished return within the physicality, as opposed to this state of awareness met with a repeatable experience never leaves you. It becomes more and more potent. It's like you're investing your attention, intention into something that can be mastered without question. You just have to actually get into that spiritual gym and start lifting those spiritual muscles and accessing the potential, because energy, potential, and all these wonderful abilities, I just refer to them as sensory perception, clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, healing, all that kind of stuff. It's all under the same umbrella, in my opinion. These are all mastered skills that you can acquire, but it doesn't mean you're enlightened. Be very clear on this. I need people to understand this. It's like I've met many people in my lifetime that have mastered specific skills. Some of them call them sitters or things of that nature, where it's within a certain yogic path. We just call them just sensory perception. It's a vibratory thing within Taoism. You acquire the immortal elixir, and then that unified state, basically the possibilities are endless. And it comes down to that. But you must be able to maestro the substance, or it's just, it's delusion. And so when you get to that point, that still doesn't mean that you have ascended to a state of Brahman, cosmic consciousness, universal knowing. We call it the primordial mother. No, you've just, along your journey, you've stopped off at this particular spot, and you put all your attention, intention into cultivating the skill. And so I've met many people that have superpowers, levitation, things of that nature, and they're acquired that state. From me, I would not invest my time or attention into something with absolutely no return. Great, I can levitate off the ground. Awesome. Now what the
Yeah, but wouldn't it be fun?
It depends. I use the desire. What's desirous to me? For me, I want to see physical healing. And so that's what I get every day. I get any way, shape, or form of physical healing. I've seen it all. You name it, I've seen it. And that's exciting to me. For me, levitating doesn't get exciting. So 3 people I've ever seen levitate. 2 are Indonesian, cult leaders within the jungles there that were super phenomenal, but they were assholes. They were not nice people, but they mastered that skill. And the 3rd one is one of my students. And everyone goes, well, Jeff Fu, how come you're not levitating? Because I don't give a shit. I'll give you the formula if I believe you've met the resonance that will be able to sustain that, because the true nature of that is this is a container. You must be able to hold that resonance. And the more and more the diminished return within the human flesh, and you believe and invest in that, eventually the energy cannot be contained. So your experience will ultimately come to an end, and you will complete that and then rebirth into a new experience. As my kids would call you, leveling up on Mario Movie Maker, and you're on level 2, you want to go to level 3, you have to invest in getting these powers, these superpowers that make that so. But ultimately, this container is the anchor to this material state. So if you just, as a lot of my Buddhist friends, they're on the monastic path. They sit there like, I don't give a shit about the energy stuff, son. I couldn't care less. I want to find the dukkha, the distortion. And they literally sit there on the watchtower. All they want to do is find the distortion, dissolve it, and be still in their version of still. Now, this is a specific what do you call it? Buddhist
aspiration.
Yeah, it's a Buddhist path that I've been commonly exposed to. Now, there are many different ways up the mountain. You could find some other Buddhist cultivation that doesn't have that same viewpoint or consensus. But generally speaking, the difference between Buddhism and Taoism, when people throw them in the same path of some Eastern philosophy, religion, whatever, the difference between Buddhism and Taoism is quite simple. Within Buddhism, that I'm aware of through my friends, is it's a pile of shit covered in diamonds. They pull off another diamond looking for more shit. And once they get done with what they believe is their duration of time within that linear state, they toss the avatar out. They return back to the earth as this symbiosis of contracting, expanding. With that, you complete, and then you are born again. This is where they're at in their own journey. Whereas a Taoist is quite simple. It's a pile of diamonds covered in shit. We just take off more shit and look for another diamond. It's good to be me. And that is rooted in your belief system. And the more you're able to replicate it through that mastery of method, then it becomes elementary, my dear Watson. Elementary. And I think that method that you and I are consistently validating through your path and mine is, in my opinion, the absolute foundation. It's critical to your own experience. If you get some fleeting paranormal moment, I saw grandma, I heard voices, I had premonitions, I can see into people's bodies. This is all just a snapshot, a little bite of what we call the spiritual dragon. You're like, we have the flow, right? We've referred to that. What we call Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort. And people are like, well, that makes no sense. My manifesting teacher told me you must have action. Breath is action, asshole. Did you know that? It's like, whoa, hang on a second. Did you just call me? Aren't you a priest? Did you call me? Yeah. Guess what? This is, again, a preconceived conditioning that you have, that I am bound by some moral code that I can't use adjectives at will. The fact that you are inverted and your yin energy is pulling you into that inversion gives me evidence of how deficient you are. And so when I pull that resonance out and it presents itself, all your shit comes up and you shit the bed in a fraction of a second, because all that stuff that you've been holding on to, not being able to allow yourself, your flow literally is a river with a big pile of horse shit in the middle of it, and you're attempting to wash it away, and then you pile more horse shit on it. And understand that the flow will always be evident, and that's the resonance that I show people, that flow will go where no man can go, and it will wash away what you perceive as a material state that you're entrenched in and you believe is a psychological realization. But if you want to heap more horse shit, then we're going to have more horse shit, and we'll still wash it away. But it may be presented as a longer timeline for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yep, makes total sense. I am actually amused and stunned by the use of horse shit to describe a whole lot of stuff.
Well, it just comes right back to the simplicity of something that it could potentially be nurturing and present some type of growth. I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm not really that convinced about that, because once it's expelled, it's generally supposed to go back into the earth, and I guess it does. It recycles. So,
Mhm.
but you can quickly, instantly get into a pile of shit in the middle of a river that's being washed away, and it's like, oh my goodness, I want to hold on to my shit. No, no, you really don't. The more and more you're inverted, you're.
It's funny. Years ago, I saw this. It was like I don't know. I guess you'd call it sort of a meme thing, but it had to do with shit and all of the religions. And I just 2 days ago, this 2 days, maybe it was even yesterday, I found it. Somebody pulled it up again. I said, "Oh yeah, I've been trying to remember what shit was associated with what religions for a long time now." And there's shit everywhere.
There's shit everywhere. There's absolute shit. I mean, unassuming, most people fall into, oh, it's so delightful. It makes me feel so still when I read the Tao Te Ching, and then they're completely delusional in the sense that they're so contracted, they're so retentive, that the idea that religion is associated with Taoism would be fear-based and scary. And
Yeah.
I remember quite distinctly when one of my dear friends, who's a devout, Jewish believer in all things Judaism.
Mhm.
And I remember, this is decades ago, and I go, I'm ordained. It's like, oh my goodness, that's what, as a Taoist priest. It's like, and out of nowhere, just like Tourette's, there's only one God. I'm like, easy, buddy, easy, easy. Take it down a notch. Just take it down, just a couple. It's like, and it was just this reactionary thing that he had no control over, just like absolute
Yeah.
shit coming out of his mouth. And unfortunately, that friendship is, alas, no longer, and hasn't been for many decades, because you get stuck in that.
Mhm.
And I don't, for me, my personality likes driving my side by side in the desert 100 miles an hour, eating chocolate bonbons, and I still invest in that shitty thing called Netflix. It's garbage information. But in any case, I enjoy these things. This is my personality. I'm not erasing my personality. For me to witness, for me to be a participant in witnessing the now moment of healing, does not require my personality, does not require my participation. But then you have to be able to master it so that that resonance is an autonomous thing. You're not in, as you refer to, the thinking process. It just is the very emission of your presence in this state of now, which means you're every place, every person, everything. You're no place, no person, no thing. And the paradox will fuck with your head for the end of time, because this is yin and yang. This
Yeah.
is that powerful stuff. And then if you just water it down to the river with a pile of shit in it, and if you let the shit just slowly wither away, slowly deteriorate as the water, the potency of that river is the evidence of the true fluidity of who you are.
Yeah.
You want to shovel more shit in there, go ahead. I mean, it's a personal preference. It's pain and suffering is optional if you like it. I don't know.
Well, I just had my birthday 2 days ago,
Happy birthday.
which is same birthday as Edgar Casey, and which means I'm a Pisces, and I'm also ready to get the heck out because it's the end of the cycle. Of course, it's the end of this cycle. Uh, but I like water, which means I would like rivers too, which means I don't want them all crapped up with all kinds of baggage belonging to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it was that eclipse that came in, which really I think it was on the 14th. The last
It
channel I
was,
did.
yes, it was. Actually, it was on the night of the 13th into the 14th. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it was so funny. I love this because I sometimes I'll notice astrology and get deep in the cosmos because that's an intimate relationship that Taoists have with the universe. Absolutely, we love it. We rely on it. All the foundational rituals I teach people, that's just basement level shit. When we get into the deep stuff, I just have complete direction from Lao Tzu, which is really a dialogue with the monologue. So just in case people are like, you're just like being possessed by some energy or spirit, he is evidence based from me and my excitement that I love with my relationship with the spirit world. And the substance is when I see him as clear as I see you. I hear him as clear as I hear you. And
Mhm.
that's just part of the sensory perception with my eyes open. Like right now, I've got like 7 different spirits in this space right now,
Mhm.
looking at me, sitting down at this table and having a grand old time. And I can access a dialogue just by speaking to them. I don't need to center it in my mind or it's a concept, but this comes back to the sensory perception. How developed are you at these layers where you could radiesthesia, synesthesia, psychometry, telepathy? I mean, we could go on and on and on, but let's give us a definition of what that really means. It's determinative by what are your limitations? Are there any? What do you believe in? And what can you create to show you evidence of this? And so, the end result was he always spouts off when I do a channel. I like doing channels with him his admission through my physical body because people are experiencing this incredible frequency. And so you watch it on YouTube and they're like, holy shit, I felt that through my whole body because that's the evidence that he uses. It's like sure he gives you insight to what are the ebb and flow of what's going on in the next week because of the universe and how things are being transmuted from that void into this creation that we call the cosmos, the universe. Everything is an oscillating transmutation of yin and yang, and then he gives you highlights. But one of them he came up with was on the 14th. You're going to have a roller coaster ride of the shit is going to hit the fan, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I love watching or looking up things. And one of my friends is like, oh yeah, the 14th is a lunar eclipse, and I'm like, oh, you can't make this shit up. This was like a month ago he put this out, and it's like this is the kind of evidence-based stuff. And quite frankly, it goes in line with the alchemical process because we align the sun, the
Mhm.
earth, the moon as part of
Mhm.
our energy elixir field, our dantians. And so that's part of the alchemical process. So you get a supercharged self-realization of that when moments like this take place within the material state, which is just a rippling effect of these type of ancient masteries. So yes, I do appreciate the incredible magnitude of that potential that transmutes into the plight of someone who identifies as a zodiac sign of any kind. Whereas within Chinese zodiac, we're talking about monthly, yearly animals. And I always remind people, guess what? There's 12 animals. There's 5 elements within Taoist path, and they're like, oh, that's 17. And then the last point of ascension for self-realization is that you are all those things. What?
Mm.
Oh shit! This is where we bring the gold, the silver, the platinum,
Mhm.
transmute that as an alchemical process, and you are unified. That means that it's good to be you. Take every possibility that can take place, and it's all yours. And so every single moment, it's the best moment of your existence. Or furthermore, it could be the worst. It depends on what you're investing in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could never repeat that in a million years, but yeah, it makes total sense.
that's a one of my dear friends. Her name is Julie Ryan. She's a medical intuitive, and she's had a couple of clicks in this experience. And she literally looks like the psychic. She calls it the psychic buffet she likes to share with people. And she literally, she looks like, because she's got this thing about, her generation. Bewitched is her thing. So I think she just turned 63 or 64, and we're like sisters. I mean, I'm her brother. She's my sister. Same thing.
Right.
We're siblings.
I
And so
got it.
we're always chopping it up. And, it's like the psychic buffet of self-realization. But she looks like, Martha Stewart, the psychic version of Martha Stewart.
Yeah.
And you get into that state where, the potential, it never ever leaves you. And that medical intuitive thing, I have one person that literally is following me around like single white female across the internet because he had a hammer job, MC hammer job, when he interacted with me, that he couldn't contemplate or understand because the resonance was so potent. But he's used to people stroking his ego with, oh man, this is so amazing, I can't believe the energy, and like, this is a stopping point for the individual. You get there and you're like, wow, this is amazing, I can enter into this, I am this, I'm all things. Yet they get fixated on it, and then of course they become inverted. It's part of the nature of that. They cannot sustain it as a whole because they're not whole. They're still on their process of completion. And from that, they see a facet of it and going, wow, I can see into people's bodies. I can do all this stuff. And because they become obsessive and then they refer to the identity of, they become extremely inverted. And that's the nature of that symbiosis. And from that, you will see the traits of that. And in most cases, and you're an exception because that's not who you are, but let's just say in most cases, when I come across these specific type of personalities, they're extremely shrouded in three ingredients that it always returns to the same place: oppression, depression, possession. And they're like, how do you know anything about me? I don't. It's a common denominator for someone that gets into this particular identity, and it becomes in line with what they call, I think it's Alex, what's Crowley, someone a couple of hundred years ago.
Yeah.
He came up with this chaos magic, which is defying all foundational stuff, which is fantastic, yet it has no substance or cultivation. So it becomes chaos. And the chaos is representative in the practitioner who ultimately goes insane from these so-called rituals that they don't have really any substance of. They pick out this and that and something else. And it can only be solidified by their knowing. So when it doesn't happen, they continue down that path. The actual energy of that construct will continue to sip from their cup, and they'll become even more and more inverted. And that means they're stuck between the upper dantian and the middle dantian within Taoism. So they believe they're all intuitive because that's part of the yin profile, yet they don't get the higher access of completely being all things. So then they stay in the mental and they stay in the emotional, and they believe that that's it. It's like when someone goes, hey, I just find love, and love is the answer to everything. That's one facet of the diamond, dude. It's not the whole thing. So when you fixate on love, you are missing a huge component to you being unified. It's a beautiful thing, yet it will present a subjective perception. Does this make sense, or am I just going to go off on a tangent? I don't know.
No. Of course, it makes a lot of sense. I'm really enjoying this conversation. You're very wise.
Well, I'll remind you of this. I know nothing. I'm as dumb as a sack of rocks. I just get the information from my teacher, my mentor, Lutsu. People go, well, you channel Lutsu. I get the information directly from my source. I don't have any teachers. I'm like, good for you, bro. I love the experience. When I teach someone, my offering to you is Big Trouble in Little China meets The Last Airbender. They had a baby, and that's the magical mystery ride you're going to go on when you're following these crumbs to your own self-realization.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're so comfortable talking about the shit in the river.
Yes.
And people should be comfortable with that. And I can tell, I had this is going to sound unrelated, but I think it's related. I'm trained in something called intuitive Gestalt psychotherapy. And I learned through one of my fantastic mentors who created this particular type of Gestalt psychotherapy. And he didn't believe in psychic stuff to start with, although I know because now I've known him for like, I don't know, just about 40 years. I mean, he's always known. He just didn't want to go there because he was afraid. So I've sort of pushed him down that direction. But anyway, so in the beginning, before he had formally sort of set up this, but he was experimenting. I was involved in some groups. I was the only non-psychotherapist, and he had invited me in to participate, which it was a tremendous honor. And I was always terrified because what the hell did I know? Which nothing. Um, and so he would set up what he calls these dyads. You know, you have your mock patient, your mock therapist, and your mock patient will present a real lifetime issue for them, deeply emotional. And then the mock therapist has got to talk to them as if they were their true therapist and try and walk them through the process and get them to a resolution someplace. So, because I was the non-psychotherapist and terrified out of my mind I was going to screw something up really badly, he put me in a dyad, but there was already the patient plus the mock therapist, and I was along to be mock therapist number 2. So turns out that the mock patient, had a real issue of having, and I forget exactly what it was. Essentially, she had abandoned her own child. And the last image was the child, screaming through a window pane after being dropped off, and that she never went back. Terrible, 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 lifetime sort of trauma for her, even though she just couldn't, for whatever reason, I don't remember. And the mock therapist then started to speak with her in lovely, soft, loving tones. Oh, I'm so sorry. And what did you feel? And yes, I feel that would be difficult. And I'm listening to this, and this is not my nature at all. I can't do that. I would love to be able to do that. I cannot do that. And everything she said was loving and caring. And the woman, who she had a particular type of personality, which was kind of, how would you use, kind of craggy, sort of sharp. She was like, no, that's not it. No, no. And the woman kept trying with this lovely, loving, soft tones. And anyway, and finally it was, her time ended, and I got told, okay, you're up, number 2. And so I just started doing what I do, which is I'm sort of just kind of abrupt, I guess. I mean, I just have to go wherever it is, and I don't judge. I really don't. But I kept, pushing her into this place. I guess I didn't think I was pushing, but I think I was. And out of nowhere, this woman who's been, holier than thou, knows much more than you, highly judgmental. You don't know about her life. You don't know what. She burst into tears, and I was like, oh, because now I didn't know what I'd done. I figured I'd done something really bad. And everybody kind of noticed in the room. And then my teacher told me later, he said, no, what you did was really, really good. I just had no idea. And he said, whatever that, the other person who was doing this sort of loving, soft, where it's all rainbows and unicorns and, life is sweet. That wasn't hitting the real place. And there is a real place in people. And we all know there's shit. We do know there's shit, but we don't like to discuss it. And we don't like to share it. and it seems uncouth, and it seems not very spiritual. It seems not very kind. And yet, anytime that you present reality to somebody as it is and you share it, that's the relief people have is phenomenal. It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's a liberation and reclaiming of something that was being obstructed and suppressed and quite frankly inverted. And that's
Well,
that.
and that's exactly what you're talking about, being either squashed into yin or squashed into yang, but getting squashed when it's not the full story.
Right. Right. And when you're able to show insight, it blows people's minds and then furthermore validates their experience and their belief system, which is a real
Yeah.
potency of a shift of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that scene from, a Towering Inferno. And there's this woman running around going, "We're going to die. We're going to die. We're going to die." This guy grabs her. I think Robert Wagner grabs her, slaps her across the face and goes, out of it. She's like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, get over here. And this is really what we're doing. In essence, you're distracting the conscious, you're entering the unconscious and revealing the true nature of things.
Mm.
And it reminds me of an illusionist that I'm quite fond of by the name of Darren Brown, who is a self-proclaimed magician, illusionist, but he uses other elements that are mastered, many things that we've spoken about in this podcast. And he doesn't claim to be energetically guru or psychic or any of these things. He just uses mastered skills to be able to acquire information about people, and he makes it clear, I'm not psychic. I'm just being able to use these techniques that are psychological to extract information about you that then would present itself like I'm some guru. He's like, I want you to be very clear. I'm not doing any of these things. And so, one of the things that he does, and this is very common, it's like, showing someone an evidence of psychokinesis. You get two people facing each other about, 10 feet in distance, and you have one person shut their senses off, close their eyes, and then you go to the other person and you touch them, and then the person with their eyes closed goes, "Oh my goodness, I felt it." Now, most of these magicians use the illusion and the distraction of the hand to enter a point of touch when the audience is looking in the other direction, and they will touch the recipient and then go back to the first person and then touch them, because there's silence. There's a delayed amount of time where this person doesn't know what you're doing. And then you've already touched them. And then when you touch that other person, they go, "Oh, it's my nose." And it's like they did it at a sleight of hand. And this is a very common technique for illusionists. Well, this is very real, psychokinesis, and I can do it myself and have for many years. It's not a real big wonderment. You're entering a biofield and you are one. And now you're just tuning yourself to each other like a tuning fork, and you literally touch some person and the other person will experience what it is that you're touching. This is not a phenomenon that's unreal, that is only in fantasy. It's a very tangible thing that can be measured. Now, he does this thing where I want to get into my unconscious. So how do I do this? So he's had events where he's been on TV shows promoting his latest show. And one of his favorite tricks, he calls it a trick, where he will put his hand into a bowl of rice, and he'll grab that bowl of rice and he'll hold it in his hand. And then he'll be like, "Slap me." And the interviewer's like, "What? Slap me right now." And they'll slap him, and that will distract him enough to enter the unconscious, and he'll be like 146 grains. And they'll be like, "What? 146 grains." And he'll drop it down on the table, and then he'll start counting it out, and it'll be like 146. And everyone's going, "Oh my goodness, that's amazing." Well, at a very, more ethically inclined version, that's what you're doing with these people, is you're not slapping the shit out of them physically, but you're getting them to stop being distracted and being able to access parts of themselves that can instantly unravel and liberate something that has been internalized for most of their natural born life. And they're like, oh my goodness, wow, I didn't even know that was possible. Yes. Look over here. No, over here. No, look over here. No, over here. And then you see it. But I love that part of Darren Brown because he does that. And, like psychokinesis, he did this one thing where he was demystifying, faith healers. And he went around America and he was presenting himself as a faith healer, but he was talking to the audience that was watching this documentary going, I'm just using techniques to show people something that if trained, you can show them. It's no superpower. It's understanding the psychological effects on what's going on right now, and we're able to enter in this state. He was very vague about it, but you and I understand how that works. So we'd get into a room, and there'd be a bunch of skeptics. They walk into the room and they sit down. They're in some type of chapel, some congregation area of a church, and he's like, "Look, I'm a faith healer. I want you to believe in God by the time we're finished here." And they're like, bullshit, I don't believe in God, you're full of crap, blah, blah, blah. A consensus, a whole group of people, probably about 20 or 30 people. And, it's very easy. And this is the part where the ethical part, where many people poo-hoo or turn their nose down and go, well, you need permission. This is very much a lie, but you live your own life. If you are entering into these things and manipulating people, and you still believe in karma, this is where most of the megalomaniacs and psychopaths that have walked the earth over human history, levels of genocide that we've seen over human history, those megalomaniacs always fell on their own sword only because they stopped believing their own shit. And they tapped into their empathy, and then all of a sudden they were unraveled because it was met with basically all the shit that they thought that they were going to get away with because they believed that it was okay to take human life. And then they stopped believing it was okay. And all of a sudden they tapped into this ooey gooey center. And then the ramifications of that were met with the side effect of having the fear of what will be the outcome of all the wrongdoings that I've done, because now I believe they're wrongdoings. They're not right. And I mean, it happens over and over again. It's this symbiosis. And so anyway, he gets these people in a room, he connects them, and just by conversation, they're all listening to him. So their attention is following his directive. And he goes, all right, everyone stand up. He goes, I want you to close your eyes. And then you watch him, and this is such an easy thing to do when you access the biofield, which is everywhere. It's all things. And he would have them all standing, and he would put them in a position, soften your knees, close your eyes, and they're standing up, and they've all got this attitude, God doesn't exist, nothing exists. And then he'll just stand there, and he'd push into their biofield, and they'd all start dropping and falling back into their seats. And everyone is like, holy shit. And he made it clear, this is the presence of God. And you had these people open their eyes after they sat down in their chairs. Some of them are crying. They're having all these side effects of the energy itself. And he'd be like, so who doesn't believe in God now? And like literally no one put their hand up. Who believes in God? And they're just like sober as a nun. They're completely dumbfounded by what they'd experienced because they didn't think that was possible. They didn't even know what energy was, even though that's the electromagnetic field that runs through their physical body. Without it, they are dead. This is all based on your belief system of you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. But accessing that and not having them in a position where we're sitting down, we're talking to Jesus, we're calling in the angels, we're doing this thing, that wasn't taking place. It was just an interconnection and a knowing that this is already the framework and the underpinnings of the grid that we're all operating in, that to some degree through all indigenous practices will come to that same consensus that there is this evidence everywhere. No matter what you believe in, there's evidence of this potential. And so, Darren Brown is phenomenal for doing that. And he would then, after everyone was like, some people got up and left, they were freaked out. It was like, I've seen a ghost, I felt something. And then afterwards there was full disclosure. I apologize, I was just showing you the potential of energy. This is not some spirit attack, or you experience God, you're experiencing this fundamental thing. And he would explain how it worked. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm having mixed thoughts about it. I was thinking about, I don't really do martial arts, but I sort of fiddled around with it for a little while and was always fascinated by that movement that they can do, which is, push the energy and, knock over their opponent on the other side of the room.
Yep.
And I begged somebody to try and show me what that felt like. And I think I was a little disappointed because I couldn't, it was nothing really as dramatic as like, what you're talking about with this guy's audience members. And so I assumed that it had something to do with my skepticism about, the ability to be really knocked over by that kind of energy. Although I'm assuming people do get knocked over by it.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's a training, what we call iron shirt training. It's a permanency, an implanted frequency and density within the flesh, within the fascia, within the connective tissue, but it's met with, a devotion of cultivation.
Yeah.
And so you can absolutely have that type of potency if you want to focus your attention on it. And it's a requirement of constantly reinvesting in this, super potency of your biofield from this specific alchemical process. And, it's absolutely tangible, yet doesn't interest me that much. It's like you can see it. And moreover, if you just want an example of that, you can see it instantaneously. It's just a matter of, okay, I do it to people all the time, and I'm like, okay, you're moving. You're literally moving, and I'm puppeteering you with my hand like this, and you're moving in whatever direction, and your eyes are open. You're like, holy shit. If I just point at your arm, I can pull it up. And I mean, there's degrees of hypnosis to that level of consent. But when they close their eyes and you're moving them around the room with the energy, this then validates more of the experience. But furthermore is your resistance.
Yeah.
I'll be like, hang on, you're experiencing this push and pull, but you're literally holding on for dear life. And then you're saying, well, what am I supposed to experience? I'm like, well, allow yourself to experience it because it's happening. And I know it's happening. You're like, yes, it is. But so you're resisting it. Yes. Okay. So what was the purpose of me showing you this actual event? If you go and sit and cultivate and you want to really invest in the density of your auric field, and then how deep you want to go with this Fajin, you can really be like you're hitting a brick wall. So when I put my hands on someone, either in the ether or physically, you commandeer their body. It's the whole understanding of yin and yang. So if I just apply my fingers to, say, example, you're standing in front of me, I put my hands on your forearms, and all I'm doing is just entering into the fascia with my intention. And it's just a little contact with the dermal layer. And the more you resist, the more I control you. And you'll see, you'll be like, holy shit, well, that's crazy. I mean, yeah, the more you resist, the more I control you, and the more you have no connection with the earth. And you just move them around. And they can't hold the charge. They can't resist it, even though they're resisting with all their intention, all their might, because the potency of that unified state will override any polarizing effects of yin and yang. It doesn't matter how much you attempt, because you're able to complete that frequency. When you're extreme from one to the other, you're mine. You're absolutely mine. And that's how you puppeteer the energy within that container. Does that make sense?
I got to think about that because that would not have come to me as a natural thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff, a lot of the crap that people teach within martial arts or Taoism or internal alchemy is bullshit. Like, you get a lot of talking heads, and that's where people freak out when they end up training with me. Is like, this shit is real. Yes, it is very real. It's not some figment of your imagination where you're playing, fake it till you make it. You are going to access this state, and you're going to make it a permanence. You're going to cultivate it. And it's all got to do with what you want to do with your attention. And then your intention will dictate that. And you'll see more and more further evidence. Personally, doing things like, throwing people across the room, or that energy charge is instant. So if I teach a 50-pound woman how to apply the 1-inch punch to a 300-pound gorilla, that only takes a few seconds to do. If you want to start like commandeering people to see the material state of them being moved around like a rag doll, that again takes seconds, but it may be a little bit more attention and cultivation that you maintain your auric field to transfer that energy because you want to show power. I can show power in the same way by witnessing a physical healing because I'm just bringing that resonance there. The more investment into the material state and the density of the energy is, a preferred state of the seeker or the cultivator, and it's your personal preference. Is it necessary to acquire all these psychic abilities and healing and all this kind of? Absolutely not, because I can witness a physical healing without developing that nurtured state of energy potential that would show you a more dramatic effect where you are, flown across a room. I can literally exercise someone and the same thing happens because there's no boundary. But someone that becomes fixated with that will eventually burn out because they're super invested in the yang
Oh,
element.
yeah.
That most of these martial artists burn out and die by the time they're 60 because they just focus on that and they're not nourishing the yin element and ultimately the primordial mother, which is the creator of those two elements. And so they get fixated on the yang, and it just drains their battery, and the imminent death and mortality becomes evident. It's just part of the journey, or how much you want to get distracted by that stuff. But yeah, it's all part of it. Like, when you chi pack is what we call it. When you chi pack, you're stuffing into everything at a subatomic level this substance and this density, and you will literally feel like an amber of a cigarette. And the more and more you invest in it, the more and more, and I can supercharge myself in a fraction of a second that maybe 30 plus years ago would have taken me, hours of cultivation. It's part of the power and the investment that it takes within this state that goes beyond the transitory limited effects of the physicality. And so when you access that frequency, it's instant. And so you will charge your energy, your battery instantaneously. You will show these types of things. But, the chi packing is consciously saturating the physical flesh, and you become sort of, so you're like this, amber of a cigarette, just how I put it. And you're just oscillating this energy, and it's so dense, it's freaky, but it's also a commitment that you want to take. And the more and more you put into it, the more and more result you'll get. And eventually it will become an animated autonomous process if you want to be distracted by that. That doesn't excite me, but it's possible. And I've teach people it. I've experienced it myself, but it will take a moment. And some people are like, oh, I thought I was going to get that instantly. My angels told me, well, you gotta master a few things here and there. Your remembrance can be instantaneous, and you can be all inclusive. You can have everything happen to you at once. I pretty much had that happen to me over 30 years ago. So is it possible? Yeah. And then you go, okay, well, that doesn't excite me. It doesn't. I've now filled that gap within my returning home to myself. So it's no longer a distraction. And so you continue to expand. Whereas some people become fixated, that we go back to that inverted effect where people get caught up in the superpower of being the energy healer, the psychic, the medium, whatever. And then that will show the trappings of the inverted effects of that. And it will start to show more and more and more with something that would seem psychological that is not. They're just investing in that state. It's turning on itself like an autoimmune disease. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense because, I mean, I can tell you, and you probably already know this, I mean, a lot of psychic mediums, first of all, they put on weight, which is interesting. And second of all, many of them get very, very sick. And I think I've always figured it's related to not a well thought out use of energies or whatever. And it could also, I think there are many people who get obsessed with their, these supernatural-ish skills.
Yeah.
And so then they sort of overuse them and abuse them that way and burn out. I have seen people burn out that way.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Actually, it's making me think. I want to ask you, because I haven't been able to figure this out. There are two things that over my lifetime have been sort of consistent, and I find them really weird. One is that people don't see me. It's like I go invisible, and this could be family, friends, strangers, doesn't really matter. They just don't see me, and I think it's weird. Okay, that's first thing. Second thing is, many people, and this happens a lot, and it has always happened, which is I run into absolute strangers, and they are convinced that they know me. I've had people stop and turn around and do double takes, on sidewalks. I'm just taking like a walk or whatever, and they get freaked out and they think, oh, and then they try to justify, oh, you look just like a dead ringer for, you name it. I just had this happen like yesterday, but it happens a lot. And in trying to figure out, well, okay, I'm invisible and I'm overly visible. And I don't understand why that would be.
Well, I mean, it almost comes back to your theory, or maybe the theory of multi-dimensional existence. I mean, you're literally maintaining and operating everywhere at once. I mean,
yes, and people in the UFO field, people have said that they've seen me on spacecraft. Well, I don't have any memory of ever being on a spacecraft.
Well, I mean, it's just more validation of that very theory, right?
Yeah, well, I'm tossing that in as okay, yeah.
Right. But I mean, you need to see more. You're seeing more of it, but you're still denying it. It's like, this is real. This is an experience that's happening, and it's happening to me. How am I invisible? I mean, part of Qigong training that I teach people, the internal power of Nidan, the internal alchemy, is being present now. That means that I can transmute as much or as little of myself into everything or nothing right now. And that will be shown through, so the spiritual version of the conscious multitasking that happens instantaneously. But you have to have substance. That that substance needs to be equalized. So how does that work? A classic one would just be, all right, get two people, one in New York, one in Jamaica, and transmit a healing to them at the same time? Or furthermore, why don't you do 5 people randomly in different parts of the world? One could be in your bedroom, the other one's in the other side of America, the other one's here, and then transmit the healing necessary for them at the very same time, and then watch the effects, which is instant. But you must be able to validate it. Because most healers are like, well, I'm exhausted, I've channeled, I can only do so much, I'm spent, I need to sleep for 15, 20 hours, my nervous system is wrecked, blah, blah, blah. Again, all within the construct of their belief system that is limited, and they keep repeating it and giving themselves evidence of that. You have to pass over that threshold. You're giving yourself more and more evidence, yet you're denying your own truth that is really going on. You're like, oh, well, that seems complex. Well, it's not. That is the true nature of who you are, which is now. And they're able to see every facet of you that you're not even aware of that is taking place instantaneously. And it happens all the time. But the more and more you become aware of it, the more and more you can cultivate it, you can saturate it and obtain that permanence. Then you are able to do it at will, and you have the dominion and the maestro effect that we talk about, where you detach and attach. You detach from what is the simplicity of the finite ego, personality, bankrupt state, the intellect, and you realize that again is a construct, one facet of the diamond. And the only way to validate that is through this density, the energy potential, because this is your barometer. This is the experience you're having right now. And what is this made up of? Is this substance, the electromagnetism. So master that electromagnetism, realizing that's there, even though you're able to, once you're self-realized, come to the point knowing that you're all things and nothing at the same time. It's conceptual for most until you're able to obtain a validation that is a repeatable experience. And you're having more and more repeatable experiences, yet you're still like, nah. And that's the beautiful part, because I love doing that myself. It's like, you can't make this shit up. It's like, it's really happening. You're getting the evidence that you need, and nah. And of course, you will be reminded, no. Here, have another example. Here's another one. Here's another one. And, it's like when it comes to things like the ultimate goal for most people is like, I want money. What do I need to do to get money? How do I get money? It's like, okay, look, I'll give you the foundations. Let's start with your path of it. And I only got $1 million. I need more. Well, you've had 5 million. No, I need 10. Well, you're up to 20 million. I'm still not satisfied. And then you go, okay, I'm showing you all these things. You're using the techniques to develop this skill. But let's get back to, why are you not satisfied? Why have you not returned to whole? Because of all these inverted deficiencies that need to be met. Then that will no longer be your catalyst. It will no longer be the need that you are constantly reaching for, because it will be met with that resonance, and you will be whole, and you'll be like, oh, I don't even think about that anymore. It's not even on the menu, which seems to be most of the situations where you see people that are super successful in whatever they're doing. There is a reason for that. And then there's so much shit. There's so much horse shit in their river that it seems on the outside looking in that, oh yeah, it's all being met. No, it's just what you're desiring has been met from someone else. Yet all their horse shit is still piling up. And, it happens. It happens so quickly that, you're getting evidence. It's nothing to think about. That finite mind, that bankrupt state that you keep referring to, the Groundhog Day, you're getting more and more. And your intuitive state, your state of knowing keeps going, here's another one. No. I need to look outside of myself. Hey, look, let me ask San Qing. You already know, but hey, why not? It's fun asking the question, right? It's like, give me a little bit more insight.
Yeah. Yep. I get you.
Yeah. But it's nothing more than that. Yes, it's nothing more than that. It's not some complex polymath equation that you need 47 million brains for. It's just right there in front of you. And as it goes, we have come to the end of the road. When there's silence, it's like good. There's good and bad things that come with this polarizing effect. There's a completion, and then there's a. I need to get back off this podcast. I've had about enough. We're at our max today. I think for not even trying, we had an incredible conversation today, in my opinion.
I have loved talking to you. I think no, you're well. Obviously, you're very wise, so that's lovely, and you speak well, and you are humble, and you're very happy to share things, and I really appreciate all of that. You're very profound, obviously. I mean, you know that, but
I know Ralph Sue is, but the humility. It's like, sure, when knowing is referred to from someone in deficit, they refer to that as arrogance and being condescending, or being completely narcissistic, which is the traits of what they need to nourish themselves with to return to whole. So all the things that you're observing within this conversation are all those things. And there are things that you have that you're trying to move away from, and you have all those things, and you cannot fight it. You cannot fight all that potency, that profound stuff. You're still trying to beat yourself with a stick. Now I need a little bit more. I gotta hurt myself a little bit.
Okay, yeah, okay, fine. I'll take it.
You are profound, my friend. You are really profound, and I always, look forward to our conversation, and this will not be the last one, because this is where we really get down with the get down, and we're able to, marinate in so many different things that the truth be known, unless you've experienced it, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's like this is like, and you and I have gone through that path where, here's another one. Fake it till we make it. Again, we'll get there at some point.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
And I really am very grateful for you, and I appreciate you and all your wisdom teaching, even though you sort of water it down to a method. Is experiential. It's like this is a mastered state that you have repeated and embodied to acquire that insight that helps all the people that you share it with. And that is wisdom teaching beyond.
It goes back to what I was saying before. If you don't speak somebody's language, they won't hear you. So procedure, method, all of that stuff, that's all language for people.
Yeah.
So.
And you had me at hello.
Oh.
Yeah, you don't remember that movie, Jerry Maguire? Help me to help you, to help me, to help you, to help me. Oh man.
Oh, vaguely, yeah.
You gotta watch that again. Or it could be something up, I'm a closet Cruise fan. And I'm not indoctrinated into the Scientology, but I have had many experiences. 6 degrees of separation with him. I had them with Katie Holmes, who was one of his ex-wives.
Oh yeah, I remember. Sure.
When she was attempting to apply a bunch of garbage Scientology mind control. It was very weak. I was like, oh, that's a nice attempt. I appreciate that, but it's not like this. And she shit herself when she got a charge of that. But in any case, that was a whole nother story, another situation. But I am a Cruise fan. And regardless of his indoctrinated state of wherever he's going, one of my favorite movies.
Wait, I'm losing.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? How about now? Hello? How about now? Yeah? Nancy, you there? Nancy? Hello? Nancy? Nancy?
Yeah.
You
It's
got me?
disappearing.
Yeah, how about now? There we go. Yeah?
I'm disappearing.
Yeah, you're disappearing. This is the thing you're talking about. No, I mean, I would just say the last wisdom teaching of Tom Cruise was the dream is always the same. Instead of going home, I go to the neighbors. You have to watch Risky Business to know the rest of that. But in any case, the wisdom teaching goes as something like this.
I'm losing.
Did you lose me? All right, let's wind this down.
I can't hear it.
Can you hear me?
It's good. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm losing it.
All right, let's wind it down to, I'm going to put on your social sphere and interweb under this podcast. I'm so grateful to have you as a dear friend of mine. These conversations are always welcome. I love them. I can't wait for the next one. And I'm just grateful for you. Thank you for coming on the podcast. And she's frozen. And with that, I will say thank you to you, Nancy. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing. And we'll see you in the next one, guys.